This is Hammond,
And Jessica.
and you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. If you like what you're listening to, please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. And we have so many things we got to talk about. And I do want to talk about the inauguration. But
Mhm.
first, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. You look like you're being held hostage somewhere.
I was just telling Jessica we need to hold off. I'm working on something, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll get to the inauguration stuff. So I'm gonna tell you this story now and just finish this up because it just happened. So why not talk about it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you
Breaking news
remember
once
breaking?
again on a podcast that doesn't go out live.
I know, breaking news for a story that about 3 people care about. Um, do you remember over the summer we talked about a group called Atheist Alliance International because their executive director, Michael Sherlock, had basically used the R word to describe religion. And it's like,
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, I do remember this.
and the
Oh, this
response
was
was
good
like,
drama.
it was. And it was like, look, I'm not a fan of religion. But also, why are you using an ableist slur? Why is that your go-to? Like, oh, you think you're a badass edgelord to go to? Like, it's
Yeah,
stupid. It's
it's
just a stupid way to
very
attack.
it's very dumb and it's very low and
Yeah,
sucks. It's punching down in like a very significant way. It's
yeah.
dumb and it's the year of our Lord 2021. We can just stop saying that.
Right. And when people called him out on it, he lashed out at them. He called one critic who is female the C word. Because again, that's just who he is.
Cunt is one of my favorite words, and I don't like to see it brandished against women.
You're gonna hear it many more times in the next few minutes. So,
Good.
So anyway, after that all happened, and I reported on it, wrote about it. Atheist Alliance International basically said, "Look, we are suspending Sherlock for a month or so, because that's unacceptable behavior."
Mhm.
And
And he'll definitely learn his lesson in a month, like people
oh
tend to
yeah,
do.
and he was suspended for a month. I don't think he gets paid anything crazy from the group or anything, but he was suspended, I believe, without pay for a month. And then he came back, and honestly, there was, as far as am concerned, publicly anyway, there was no real issue. He looked to be a less divisive executive director as far as the public eye was concerned. He wasn't
Mhm.
doing the same kind of rhetoric after that. Anyway, that was like July.
Okay.
And it's been, I know, like a world of change since July. But that brings me to what just happened today, because I saw this tweet this morning and I'm like, where did this come from all of a sudden?
Hmm.
Basically, this morning, it's Friday the 22nd. Sherlock posts something on Twitter which says basically copy paste the same insulting tweet that got him in trouble 6 months ago, 8 months
Hmm.
ago, where he's like, religion is an R word relic that really needs archiving in humanity's library of bad ideas. Religion is the privileged C word who believes he is oppressed. Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. It's a
Wait,
stupid tweet.
wait,
He's,
wait,
yes,
wait. He
yes,
said religion is a privileged cunt?
that is what he said, and that is a quote.
I don't even know what that means.
I
Religion is
don't think it's the privileged cunt who believes
it's the privilege. Oh.
there are no others, just that one. It doesn't really make any sense. I think it's just, again, this vibe of I'm an edgelord, so I got to squeeze in these words somewhere.
Yeah, this just sounds like an 18-year-old lashing out,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yes. And then I didn't even see that tweet, to be honest with you. The reason I saw it is because his next tweet was, "Hey Hemet Meta, comma, this is just me clearing my throat, cunt."
somebody
So that one I saw.
called you a cunt on Twitter.
I mean, not for the first time, but I saw
Nobody's even
that one
called
and I'm
me
like,
a cunt on Twitter, and I'm a much bigger cunt than you are.
you really are. Anyway,
I
so
know.
he
Wait. Oh my God.
I saw that, and I don't care about the personal insult part, but I'm like,
No, I don't either.
what are you doing? Like, why are you saying the thing you said that got you in trouble way back when? And why are you definitely calling my attention to it? And I'm like, huh, that's weird. I don't understand it. I don't care to understand it because I don't think about him and I don't care about him. But I couldn't figure out
my
what is
God.
this all about. And then about 5 hours after that tweet was posted, Atheist Alliance International posted something separate from all this, which said that he was resigning. Here's what their statement said. I want to make sure I have this right. Yeah, it's from one of their board members. It is with great regret that I announce the resignation of Michael Sherlock from the position of executive director of Atheist Alliance International, effective from today. Okay, next paragraph. Michael holds down 2 demanding jobs and lives in a time zone that means getting up at 4 a.m. several days a week. He has realized it's impossible to do this long term. To achieve anything like a reasonable work-life balance, something had to give.
Where does he live?
I think in Tasmania, but like Australia, New Zealand, that area.
Oh, that's rough.
I understand what they were saying there. It said at the end of this message, we're sorry to see him go. And I was thinking, that sounds like a politician who's like, I'm resigning to spend more time with my family. Maybe you are, but usually that's not like really that comes out of nowhere. You suddenly decided after the campaign and after everything you've done that now is the time to spend time with your family. Like, what's really going on?
Right.
And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, he clearly knew he was leaving, which is probably why he felt the freedom to tweet insults and all that. So okay,
did he target anybody beside? And target is generous. He called you like, let's not burn anything down over it. It was just you.
Yeah, but okay. So I was like, what's the backstory here? Because he clearly knew he was resigning. Then he felt free to do that. It wasn't the other way around. He didn't get in trouble for insulting me. Any listener, please feel free to join the club. You won't get in trouble. So I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I hear from someone, no names mentioned, who says, well, there is more to the story. This is why we had to postpone recording this, because I was trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Okay, so a little more than a week ago, Michael Sherlock goes on Facebook and posts, I'm going to quote this. This is what he posted on Facebook. Islam poses a greater threat to humanity and human rights than any other religion on the planet. #fact. Okay, whatever. Nothing new to hear some edgelord atheist saying Islam is the cause of all things evil. Like, yeah. Okay, one person responds to that post by saying, well, it's not like all of Islam, dude. And here's what the commenter says. I'm going to paraphrase because it was a long comment. He says, Islam isn't the problem so much as Muslim extremists. And there are millions of other Muslims out there who are peaceful and positive and kind. You can't use a broad brush against all of Islam. And the person admitted, look, Islamic fundamentalism is a greater threat than religious fundamentalism, sure. But also, like, hey, we talked about the Capitol siege before. That included a lot of Christian nationalists, Christian extremists. I
would reckon that there were 0 to 1 Muslims at the uprising.
That too. And also, like, it would be foolish to say, well, Christians approved of that siege or Christians did that thing. No, it was a specific kind of Christian. Stop painting all of them that way. That shows you know nothing about the religion. Okay, it was a reasonable comment to make in response to what Sherlock posted. So what do you think Sherlock responded with to that commenter?
Oh, did he call the commenter a cunt?
Well, you're never going to believe this. He did. He did. Let me quote.
Right.
This is, by the way, this is what he posted literally as we're speaking 6 hours ago. So around the same time he was calling me the same thing. Here's what he said about that commenter. What an asshole. This cunt is slapping the struggles of Muslims and ex-Muslims in the face for nothing more than his own self-righteous, sanctimonious virtue signaling. Cunts like this are part of the reason why human rights abuses continue in the Muslim world.
Did he just learn the word cunt? Like, what the fuck is going on here?
Man, I don't know. But wait, it gets better.
Wait, you said it was 6 hours, so it was about 7 a.m. our time? I just want to know what time it was.
Yeah, it was this morning. Yeah, for us. Anyway, he posts that comment about the dude criticizing him over something he deserved to be criticized for. But wait, it gets better. Here's what
I just want to say, I looked it up. It looks like it was around midnight Sydney time when he would have done it. So I'm just trying to put all the pieces together. Like, was there booze involved?
I don't know. I'm not suggesting that. I think this is just who he is when he's sober.
Yeah, no, I don't know anything. That's just like when I see somebody say something very dumb at midnight, my mind is like, you're bored drunk tweeting. Who among us hasn't?
Yeah.
Not you. Well, you're very clean and sober.
Thank you. So anyway, a source tells me that interaction, because he basically lashed out at the commenter within the comment thread like more than a week ago, that interaction was reported to the Atheist Alliance International board.
Okay.
And it turns out the person he's criticizing, that Sherlock is criticizing, happens to run an AAI affiliate. Like, he's not a random commenter. He's a guy who literally his group works with Sherlock's group. It's not a nobody, you know what I mean? And so this exchange was reported. Like, this is how our executive director is treating one of our own affiliates.
What do men need to do to get fired is my question here.
Well, AAI apparently said we're going to go through with a disciplinary hearing, whatever that means. And when Michael was informed... Tribunal. And whenever Sherlock was informed about this, he basically said, you can't fire me. I
quit.
Which...
Some Michael Scott bullshit.
I asked that commenter, by the way, like, now that his resignation has gone through, what do you think about this thing that he said about you? Because we are, I guess, fellow cuntmates. And he told me he was disappointed with the parting statement by the Atheist Alliance International board, like referring to the resignation announcement, which he said gives a false explanation.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't leave to spend time with his family. He didn't leave because his job, he had other things on his plate. He left because of this problem where he's basically...
He can't stop calling people cunts.
He just can't. So, I don't know.
I guess now that I know he's Australian, that sort of layers it a little bit different. I didn't realize he was Australian before. Like, cunt is definitely thrown around a little bit more in Australia, but like this isn't like
there's a difference.
This isn't a joke being like, oh, you're such a cunt. This is like
yeah, exactly. This is not like a Jim Jeffries comedy special where he throws the word around randomly. Jokingly, or this podcast. Like, it's not a joke. It's meant as an insult. This was my problem with his use of the R word. Like, it's childish to me if you say religion has retarded our intellectual growth. Like, grammatically, I understand what you're saying. I still think you're not exactly telling the full story there, but that's not what he said.
No, but also when people say something like that,
when there are other words available.
It reminds me of like when I was in high school and a bunch of boys learned that the word niggardly was a thing that was not.
Yeah.
And that's what they say to be like edgy. And it's not funny or interesting or smart. It's just
you're just
stupid.
A dick.
Yeah, you're just being a dick to people.
So all of this just happened. I don't know what AAI is doing. This is the same group that had to hire Michael Sherlock because their previous full-time executive director was David Silverman, who has now gone off to the right.
Okay, I think I did this 6 months ago, and I'm going to do it again now. I don't know what the job is exactly, but
I don't either.
I want to be clear. I'm taking interviews right now. I'm talking to a couple companies about freelance work. If they want to reach out, I promise here and now that I will never sexually assault anybody, nor will I call strangers cunts online. I will use that for my friends.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, hit me up, jessicablumpygreif.com. You can reach me there. Yeah, I work for pretty reasonable rates, and I live in the Midwest, so I'm in Central Time. I'm very easy to work with.
I have said this before, but I want to add, like, I genuinely am not gleeful about shitting on this organization. Like,
no.
I want them to succeed, because if their goal is to make atheism palatable and to help people where you really can be oppressed for being an atheist, which is
Mhm.
their purported goal. Like
Mhm.
I'm totally right there with them. But the stuff their leaders are doing is just indefensible. And honestly, it creates more problems for people who are advocates and activists.
It's true. I think, God, I cannot imagine the leader of any like. Can you imagine if like leader of like Jews for Christ? What's the thing? Jews for Jesus, Jews for
Just for
Christ, something like that.
Jesus, yeah.
Jews for Jesus. If he was like out there on his phone, like calling randos cunts, like you just can't do that, bud. Like you are an adult who has a
Like it would
job
be
and
bad
represents
enough.
people.
It would be bad enough if you had the job and then you did this on your private professional, like I'm sorry, your private personal Facebook
Yeah.
page or something. I mean, that would be a problem by itself because
Uh-huh.
even though you're not doing it on the company's time, but what
Yeah.
I
You
don't know
still.
what their job description is that this is the best they can find. I don't
Yeah. I mean,
understand it. I don't know what their board is doing.
not most, a lot of companies, and I don't think this is necessarily right, but a lot of companies will monitor their like employees' social media. But like, I mean, look at what happened with in the insurrection, in the riots up at the Capitol. Like, people are
Yeah.
getting doxxed all over the place and losing their job because like you do not get to be a fucking cartoon movie henchman and also like just masquerade around like with the rest of us as if you're a regular person who has morals and beliefs.
Yeah.
Like you cannot just do this if you are like, and those are just randos. Like you can't be the head of a thing and call people cunts on Twitter. You simply just can't. Like I know Trump kind of ruined Twitter for all of us and like what people can get away with, but can we as atheists and as humans just strive to be slightly better than Trump? Like that's all I'm asking for, and we're failing.
I don't know. They got uh,
You're
fix up your
just
own
good
house,
looking,
people.
brave.
You're already
.com.
gunning for the position.
Listen, I want to be clear. I do not know what this job is and I do not know if I'm qualified, but I'm smart and I rarely insult people on Twitter under the guise of professionalism.
This is true.
So, I
All
don't
right.
know.
Let's talk about happier things. How was the inauguration for you?
Oh, it was so great. I cried several times. God, okay. So the poet laureate, the youth poet laureate,
Oh, she was amazing, Amanda
was
Gorman.
Amanda Gorman was incredible, stole the show. My favorite tweet that I retweeted was like, yes, we all think Amanda Gorman was the best part of inauguration. Maybe we should fund humanities. Turns out we as humans like art.
As a
That
public speaking coach who does poetry type events and
mhm.
stuff where it's like, "Oh my god, she's so good at what she's doing."
She's very good. I do wish she was on an Apple box
I
because
know
the,
the
the,
microphone's
the
covering
microphones
her
were
face half the
as
time.
big as her poor face.
Yeah.
But she was incredible, completely stole the show. That yellow jacket, loved it, iconic. It is going to be a look for the rest of our lives. Lady Gaga also fucking smushed it with her like Mockingjay pen. I was just really into her whole jam. I love how theatrical Lady Gaga is all the time because
Yeah.
it does not matter if you are singing for the new president. It is the Lady Gaga show for the next 3 minutes, and
Right.
y'all better pay attention. Another thing
It was
when
exciting to have like actual performers
celebrities,
and artists and celebrities, whether it
talented
was
people,
the inauguration or the festivities around it. Because
I did
like
not watch those, but my dad kept.
Republicans don't have pop culture on there. It's like Christians who make Christian films. Like they
Uh-huh.
don't have actors they can rely on to make good movies, so they have to go to like the D-list Kevin Sorbo types to do their
Right.
stuff.
The same
Um,
reason no conservatives have good art or anything on their
right,
websites or their logos because nobody wants to work with them who's talented.
right.
I
And
will
so
say,
now it's kind of back. It's
mhm.
nice.
So the first time I cried a few times. First time I cried was when the woman, I do not remember anything about her, forgive me, got up to say the Pledge of Allegiance and she
Mhm.
signed it, which as a high schooler, I always had I took ASL and I took it first period. So that was the thing we did every day was sign the pledge. And like granted, the entire rest of the program went on with no ASL interpreter, so it wasn't ideal. But to me, it just felt like a symbol of like, hey, an administration is coming in who thinks about people who don't have the same access to this information as you. I thought that was beautiful. I cried when Kamala, God, I'm gonna get that someday. Kamala was sworn. It was all very good. I thought Biden's speech was listen, Biden is a really good speaker for this moment. He, I don't know. It made me feel very, very good, and I was happy and relieved, and just
All I'm asking is for Senate Democrats to treat Republicans the way they've treated you this whole time.
they're already like fucking Marco Rubio is already like, ooh, unity. Ugh. Think about the people who lost the election. It's like, I'm sorry, I've been hearing fuck your feelings for 4 years. I'm not sure what's happening over here. It's really, I mean, it's exactly what's going to happen for the next 4 years, and I should not be surprised, but I'm never going to be surprised, but I'm always going to be disappointed by how two-faced Republicans are.
This is not an original thought at all, but it won't be long before Republicans blame 500,000 COVID deaths on Biden. Mm-hmm. Like, that's coming if it hasn't happened already. The one thing I wanted to bring up about the inauguration regarding religion, as it appears, we know Biden is Catholic, devoutly so, talks about it, wears it on his sleeve. That's not surprising. The Washington Post noted that his inauguration speech had more words relating to religion than any inaugural speech since Dwight Eisenhower. And by that, he referred to the U.S. as a nation under God. He said faith. He also said reason, but he said faith helps show the way of unity. He referenced St. Augustine. He talked about a sacred oath before God. He said the American people were united in part because we are all sustained by faith. And now, given the moment and given all the stuff happening, it's like, I'll be honest, I watched the whole thing and none of it fazed me whatsoever.
No, I don't think it even registered for me.
Yeah, it's the way Biden talks. I'm used to it. Two, it's like there's a difference between his symbolic references to religion and policies that enforce Christian conservatism. He's not doing that. So it's like, all right, I can let some stuff slide. But here's what I want to point out, and this I thought was a valid criticism I heard from a number of atheists online. In 2009, when Obama was inaugurated for the first time, he said this during his inaugural address. We are a nation of Christians and Muslims, Jews and Hindus, and non-believers. And he gave that lip service, a name check to people like us. Biden, for all the talk of inclusion, didn't even bother with that.
Yeah.
For example, the Freedom from Religion wanted to make clear, like, hey, Joe Biden, because these public pronouncements of faith, pieties, do not make them better leaders. American atheists said, it was refreshing to hear POTUS talk about the importance of facts and reason in our nation's policy discussions, and the calls for unity, while needed, unfortunately still presumed religiosity and excluded the third of Americans who are non-religious. It's, again, if we're talking about symbolism, because Democrats love their symbolism, and this administration, more than most, which is aware of the symbolic nature of stuff and inclusion and tolerance, should certainly make sure that if they're making pronouncements about religion, they should include the non-religious. We're a big part of their base, too. It's not just do it. It's we're the people who got you elected. Help us out here by throwing us a bone. Now, I will freely admit Biden should be judged on the policies. And on policy, he appears so far, even in everything he said he's going to do, he's going to support church-state separation. He's not going to kowtow to the religious right. All of that is more important than the symbolism. But it's like the symbolism should be the easy stuff. All you got to do is give us a name check and remind Americans, especially when you're on a stage that big, that this stuff matters. Now, I will say on the first day he was in office, he signed a bunch of executive orders. One of them rescinded the Muslim travel ban. And in that executive order, this is what it said, referring to the ban. Those actions are a stain on our national conscience and are inconsistent with our long history of welcoming people of all faiths and no faith at all.
Okay.
Good. Hey, there you go. See, that wasn't hard. I'm just saying, like Biden, who talks about Catholicism all the time, and I'm not even begrudging that.
No.
When you talk about America don't say it's a faith-based nation. Don't say we are good Americans because we are people of faith. Like, get away from that rhetoric. His campaign specifically reached out to non-religious Americans during the election. Literally, people who worked on his campaign purposely reached out to non-religious group leaders and said, let's talk. We want to include you in the stuff we do. And yet they had an inauguration interfaith prayer with like 30 religious representatives saying something about, we wish you the best moving into this administration. Suddenly, we were not on their list. They did not reach out to humanist chaplains or representatives of any groups. And maybe the thinking, as has long been the case, is like, well, we wanted prayers. We know you don't do prayers. But they know damn well that there are things we could say in the name of unity. Like, come on, this is supposed to be the easy stuff. We're not asking for special treatment. We're not asking for special policies. Just give us the same lip service you give everyone else and then do everything else.
Yeah.
Anyway, separate issue, but one I think is worth bringing up is there was a survey that was done after the Capitol riots. And what surprised me about the survey, I want to pull up the exact numbers here, is that it showed that white evangelical Christians still hold a high favorability rating when it comes to Donald Trump. So the question was basically, what's your feelings about Donald Trump? Do you view him in a positive light? Do you view him favorably? And among, white people in America view him better than people of color. That's not a surprise. So specifically, when you break down the white numbers, like white Catholics, only 41% of them think well of Donald Trump. White nuns, white unaffiliated Americans, only 26% view Trump favorably. But
it's higher than I think it's going to be.
I know. But remember, nuns include not just atheists and agnostics, but all the wishy-washy people who can't make up their mind about the
spiritual
things in the world. But white evangelical Protestants, white evangelicals, 62%. 62% said they approve of Donald Trump.
Wow.
It's wildly high. And this is after the riots. So
it's after. Oh my
this
God.
is after. I mean, I know a lot of those white evangelicals. Remember, 80% of white evangelical Christians, voters, voted for him after a second time around too. They spent 4 years looking the other way when he committed atrocities, all the cruel things, the ignorance. Their morality is always bankrupt. The one thing I am hoping for now that Biden is in office is that the stain of Trump doesn't leave them. Like, they need to pay for this. And the way to pay for it is for their reputation. Every time you think of white evangelicals, when you think of Christianity, I hope people think Trump, because that really should be their worst nightmare. They spend all this time and generations upon generations saying, we want you to think of Jesus. We want you to, when you see us and you interact with us, we hope we are living embodiments of Jesus Christ. And I hope, now what they've won after 4 years of judges is, when you think of evangelicals, you think of Trump. And that's what comes to mind. And that's what these people have done for their faith. They've tarnished it with the Trump name. He's selling Christianity the way he sells steaks. They're all shitty and they should all suffer for it.
It's absolutely true. And I think that's a really astute point that I hadn't really kind of sat with very much. Is, for a long time, evangelicals were associated with the Reagan kind of, W was a
conservative, compassionate Christian.
Yeah. And I do now inextricably link the white evangelical movement with a Trump voting plaque, and remember, that's incompatible with compassion.
When we were younger in the George W. Bush era, I think one of the fears a lot of white evangelicals had, and I know a lot of progressive Christians had because they hated being linked up with conservative Christians, is that when you think of white evangelical Christians as a whole, you thought these people hate gay marriage. Easiest moral question of our time, they are wrong.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And that is true. That is how people think of. I think a lot of people think about white evangelical Christians. And now
Mhm.
it's not just that. Now it's, oh, you're the people who supported child separation, or at least didn't
Mhm.
speak out against it enough to vote against him. You're fine with racism, Confederacy. You had people at the riots. We'll talk about that some more in a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, that is their reputation. Oh, and by the way, in the past several years, it's a whole bunch of Catholic style sexual assault allegations among Protestant evangelical leaders as well. So all of
Yeah,
that,
that
that's the legacy. That's what they've bought. They wanted judges. They got judges. And this is the exchange they made. They will forever be linked. I hope they will forever be linked with Trump. They totally deserve it.
yeah, I mean, I think you said it all. They definitely are going to have a PR problem if they're going to like continue to have any kind of significant base. Because I mean, not that young people aren't ever conservative, but at least our millennials are much more liberal than than boomers, obviously, and like
And younger Christians are more progressive than their parents are
that's
too.
the
Like,
thing is I think people are going to like if you're even if you believe in like if even if you're a sincere evangelical Christian, that doesn't mean necessarily that you're also racist. But when everybody hears it's like for a long time, atheists were all white dudes or atheists were all like mean edgelords. You have to like
and still are in
I
some circles.
know it hasn't changed, but now it's women and men of color yelling instead of white guys. Haha, Emmett, we won. We're so brave. Anyway, they're going to have to figure out what their path forward is as a collective because they're
Or
I don't know.
or
Or
don't.
or or like I'm gonna play this clip in 10 years and realize I was completely wrong and evangelical Christianity is going to continue to be a southern stronghold for Republicans. Who I don't know. I'm not in the guessing game.
Uh, Let me take a break for a second and talk about our sponsor. We want to thank them. The book, if you haven't heard, we've mentioned them in previous podcasts, is called El the Humanist. The book is about a girl who grows up in a secular household in a pretty like red community. They're dominated by one religion. And so Elle is one of the only kids in her grade school class who's not religious. So when she talks to her friends, when she talks to her teachers, many of them have a really hard time making sense of how a child doesn't go to church, doesn't pray. And they're trying to figure out, like, they assume the worst things about her because of that. They assume she has no morality. How can she tell right from wrong without a pastor or a holy book to guide her? And those conversations led Elle to write a book about this with her father. So the book is called Elle the Humanist. It's a really, really wonderful kind of guidebook to humanism for anyone who's not familiar with it. And the author is Elle Harris. She wrote it with her father, Douglas. Anyone who's interested in introducing humanism to their kids in a way that is easy to understand and also helps other people understand what they're going through, it's an awesome book. ELLE, elthehumanist.com. And if you go to that website and use the link in the show notes or just purchase the book from their site, you can use the discount code friendly atheist, lowercase, all one word. You'll get 10% off. So we want to thank them for sponsoring the show. I wanted to bring up this story that I heard last week that cracked me up in part because of who we're talking about.
Wait, before we do this,
Yeah.
Emmett, you didn't tell me anything about your experience watching the inauguration.
Oh, I had the same feelings you did where it's just like it's such a relief.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's only been a couple of days so far, and it just feels like, okay, when I turn on the news or when I'm looking at Twitter, I know there's residual Trump stuff we still got to take care of, but I don't have to worry about like, oh, well, what shit happened right now?
Mm-hmm.
I can
Like
hopefully
anytime I
say,
get a push alert
yeah,
from my phone, I'm not like, fuck,
yeah, what
what
did he do
now?
now? It's like, okay, like they're doing stuff, they're doing good stuff. The question is, how can they speed up vaccinations? The question is, how do we fix the problems that Republicans caused, which
Right.
I know is an issue, but the headlines are like, here's what they're trying to do, or here are what the obstacles are, not here are the new problems the people in charge are creating. So it's such a relief in that sense.
So this is the second time in recent memory that a Democrat has been elected to clean up a Republican's mess. Obviously, Barack Obama had to do it.
Certainly in our voting lifetime, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think HW left behind too much of a mess for Clinton, but it
Yeah, I mean,
just
there were obviously political differences and wars and like political decisions they made that are wrong and misguided. And yeah, Democrats had to fix that stuff. The
yeah.
problem with Obama is they wanted to do all this progressive stuff and couldn't get anything done because they didn't try. They weren't aggressive. They didn't think they could be aggressive. They thought they had to like build up some political capital and then they could use it. And
But
now I think we've had a generation of people who are like, no, you
yeah,
have a majority right now. You have control of Congress in that sense. You need to get shit done. Get it done fast. Don't give a shit about Republicans who are going to stand in your way. Just steamroll over them.
mhm,
Get it done. Show people what you did.
mhm,
Brag about it instead
yeah.
of trying to be defensive about it. Um, yeah,
Because
go
best
forward.
case scenario, when Democrats are bragging, we're like, hey, more people have access to health care and
Right.
gay people can get married. Those are things worth bragging about, not we've demonized an
Hey,
entire religion.
you can see grandma. Republicans didn't want you to do it without someone dying. But guess what? Because we got a vaccination plan out, you can actually spend time with the people you want to see. That would be a
Yeah.
good thing to brag about.
Yeah.
Um, so get shit done. I think there's more people, not just like left wing voices, liberals historically who have always said that. But
Mhm.
like even rank and file Democrats are like, yeah, we need to get shit done now.
Yeah,
And
and I hope they ride this momentum as long as they well, obviously until 2022.
right, at least.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, so this is what I saw this week that I was just stunned by. First of all, it comes from James Dobson. Do you remember that name?
Um, James Dobson. No, I don't
Oh, you
think so.
lucky
It
person.
sounds familiar,
Yeah,
but
he founded Focus on the Family, and for
oh yes, yes, yes,
he
yes,
was
yes,
for
yes.
a long time the go-to conservative Christian for anyone who wanted to know what the worst people in the country thought about any given issue. And then basically it got so anti-gay that Focus on the Family's like, we kind of don't like the reputation we have, and they kind of pushed him out. So he's still like
Hmm.
chairman emeritus, but he's not in the news anymore. Unless
Because
like
you physically cannot fire a white man. It's literally impossible. I've
yeah,
tried.
you want to
It's
defend
scientifically
family.
untenable.
Yes. So James Dobson still is doing a thing, but it's mostly not too old. He doesn't have the megaphone anymore. He just kind of has his email list and his organization full of other older, mostly white, I assume, Christians. He sent out his monthly newsletter this week. And basically, as you would expect, he's like, well, everything's bad from here on out because Joe Biden's in office. That's not a surprise. But I was reading through what he's worried about, and literally every single thing he mentioned was either the sky is falling when it's
Hmm.
not, or this good thing is going to happen that we don't like, so we're going to pretend like it's bad,
Hmm.
or he's just flat out lying. And so I'll give you an example of what I mean. Here's what he said. There will be no checks and balances within our system of government. The most radical ideas promoted by President Joe Biden and his majority party will be enacted. Like, no checks and balances. There's a 6-3 conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court. That's a pretty big
Hmm.
check.
Hmm.
Republicans hijack the entire judiciary up and down. That's a check. Joe
Hmm.
Manchin is a check on the 50-50 Senate.
The fact that Joe Manchin is one of the most powerful people in the Senate right now is going to be infuriating over the next 2 years. I am already
Here's what's
exhausted by Joe Manchin.
He's the most conservative Democrat in the Senate. And here's the weird thing. He hasn't actually ever been the one vote that stops Democrats from getting anything they wanted. So, like, when it comes to Supreme Court justice, he doesn't mind voting against, like, voting with the Republicans, but
Hmm.
only if he's not the deciding vote. You know what I mean? He's always
So
been,
brave. Joe,
well,
oh my God, you're so brave in your
well,
conviction.
here's the thing. He's in West Virginia, heavily Republican. West Virginia, I forgot what I said. Overwhelmingly Republican. So you know what? Honestly, strategically, if that's what he feels he has to do to get reelected, I'm fine with
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
But
you're right.
like, here's the thing. if the question is, we have a 50-50 split, Kamala Harris can break it, but we need all 50 Democrats on board. He's never been tested. And all the other Democrats are kind of saying in no uncertain terms, like, he's not this, no matter what he says publicly, like, I'm against the filibuster. I'm against breaking the filibuster and ending it. I am not for that. All of his colleagues are like, he's not going to do that to us. He wouldn't be the one person stopping Democrats from doing the stuff they want, no matter what he says.
I hope not.
So we'll see about it. Like, I don't know how conservative he is, but that said, the things he says publicly, he's kind of a thorn in the side right now. We'll see what he does.
Yeah.
And also, Joe Biden is as much of a check on the liberal part of the Democratic base.
That's the thing, is like, man, the Republicans are trying, and they're so good at it because they believe it so hard, or they're very good liars, but they're somehow asking us to believe that Joe Biden is both a socialist boogeyman and Marx reincarnate and a doddering old fool who is being like puppeted around by Kamala. Like, I don't know which it is.
He can't do anything, and yet he's the most powerful man alive.
And oh God. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry,
He's not AOC, and it wouldn't even be bad if he was, but he's not. Anyway, that's the first sentence or two of what Dobson said. He went on to point out, I'm just going to give you a quick guide here, because I made an entire video going through every single thing. But he also said, like, oh no, trillions more dollars for climate nonsense.
Nonsense.
By which he means the entire future of civilization. He also, this is what made me laugh. This administration will bring, quote, less moral compunction.
Than Trump?
How do you say this administration is going to be less moral and like hurt the morality of this nation after 4 years of whatever Trump did?
Okay, I've never looked up the word compunction, but it's a feeling of guilt or moral scruple that prevents or follows the doing of something bad. Maybe Democrats don't have as many moral compunctions because they're not constantly trying to murder people.
Maybe.
They have less to be guilty about.
James Dobson also laughably said, with Biden in the White House, there's going to be, quote, more government corruption.
Than Trump.
Again,
God.
It's one thing to say we don't like it because he's going to appoint like pro-choice judges, which would be true. And I know why you're not happy about that. But the idea that you sincerely care about government corruption, when you had 4 years to say anything you wanted every day and didn't do a damn thing about it.
Yeah, like, it's pretty hard to listen to anybody cry immorality today. Like, you had your chance to have a moral backbone, and like, Lord knows McConnell barely found his after Trump was like out of office, but like,
and that lasted for all of a day. Now he's back.
Right. Oh God, now he wants to delay
trial. Whatever.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
Updated youth sports guidance. Okay. Nothing.
You know what we didn't talk about that happened last week that was a big deal? Not the Capitol siege that happened, a reporter for the New Yorker, Luke Mogelson, not only wrote an article where he was like, he follows the right-wing extremists, and he's like, I was there for the Capitol riots. And he wrote an article about what he witnessed being part of the mob, essentially, as a reporter, but he also got video. And that video had not gone up until we recorded last time, after we recorded. Okay. And part of his video, which if you haven't seen it, we'll include a link. It's on the New Yorker's website. It's on YouTube. It included where they like get into, I can't remember if it was the House or Senate, but the mob breaks into the chambers, like the QAnon shaman is behind like the podium and stuff. But they all stopped the rioting to say a Christian prayer.
Yep.
And they said literally, thank you, Heavenly Father, for gracing us with this opportunity. We got to send a message to all the tyrants, the communists, and the globalists that this is our nation, not theirs. Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent creator God, for filling this chamber with your white light and love. Like, this goes on for a while, but that prayer would not be out of place at any evangelical church in this country. They stopped the looting and desecration of the Capitol to stop and pray to Jesus. And yet during the week, people like Franklin Graham, the evangelist, have said, I know there were banners during the protests, which were fine and legal, that said, like, Jesus saves, but I don't think there were any Christians inside the Capitol. Dude, they were praying during the looting.
Yep.
They were there. This was a Christian attack as much as it was a right-wing attack. That's not saying all Christians did it or they support it. They don't. But don't pretend Christians weren't at the scene or justifying what they were doing in the name of their faith.
Right. And threatening to do it again constantly.
Yeah.
I
actually have a couple happy stories for you when you're ready for them.
Oh, okay. I'm ready.
I know. Okay, get this. This one surprised me for a little bit because this actually happened in our neck of the woods in the south suburbs of Chicago.
Ooh.
There is a Catholic priest named Father William Corcoran who gave a homily the weekend.
An Irish gentleman from the south side of Chicago named Corcoran. Oh, is he
Shocker, I know. You don't see it that often. The weekend after the Capitol riots, the Capitol siege, he delivered a homily where he actually apologized to the congregation, and he said, "I want to accept personal responsibility in part for what happened in the Capitol this past Wednesday." And according to an article in the Chicago Tribune, he went on to name the many times he failed to speak out about Donald Trump's bad behavior. Like when the president talked about grabbing women, when he mocked a disabled reporter, when he dissed John McCain. And he basically apologized to the church for not condemning Donald Trump. And part of it is he doesn't want to do politics in church, so he wants to talk about stuff beyond politics. But also, like, there's no legal violation or tax exemption risk by saying, listen, what the president is doing is bad behavior. It's wrong. That is not an endorsement of a Democrat per se, which would be a problem. But he basically apologized for saying, I should have spoken out against him. You know, he also talked about how the German Catholic Church did not do enough to condemn Adolf Hitler. He said there was a failure of the American Catholic Church to speak out against sexual abuse committed by priests. He literally said, as President Trump has lied about so many things, I have never spoken out. And fear, we are teaching the young that truth and facts do not matter. And I know it's laughable to hear a priest say, you know, we need to care about truth and facts. But to say that, you know what, these were things we should have condemned, they go against our values, and I didn't say anything. He said to remain silent now in the face of this violence was to give tacit permission that this is how we settle some things. By the way, I should also point out the Chicago Tribune mentioned some members of his congregation walked out as he said this, and he kept going. And I don't know what the long-term effects of it are. It's not like he's going to get fired or anything, but like it's telling that there were members of his church that were like, how dare you say this stuff? But he did anyway. I mean, good for him. I wish he wasn't the only one.
Yeah. I don't it's hard. It's hard to hear this literally like 48 hours after he's no longer in office. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do with that? So does this mean if Trump comes back into power, or a similar Trump person who maybe is, you know, has his edges a little softened compared to Trump, are you going to do the same thing, or am I going to have to wait until 400,000 people die and an entire religion is banned from entering this country before? Like, I just don't understand. I get it, and I applaud him for saying what he said, but like, he did not wake up to this on January 8th or whatever the insurrection happened. Like, this isn't the first time you've seen violence carried out in Trump's name, right? Like, you knew. Sorry, fucking coward. He knew. It's been happening for 5 fucking years. Trump came down that escalator, and the first fucking thing he said was like, Mexico is sending us their rapists. Like, that was when, I mean, I knew Trump was a monster, you know, when I was a kid and watching like whatever his garbage shows were. I just, no, actually, no, he can sit on it. I don't want to hear from him. I do not want to hear from people who all of a sudden are finding their moral high ground now that they're out of power.
They're called
Like
Republicans.
fucking Twitter and Facebook have done the same thing.
Yeah,
As soon as the cards were on the table that the Democrats were about to take control of, the House and Senate and the White House, they were like, oh, we're defo gonna block hate speech and make sure there's no white supremacists in
I
our
forgot who
platform.
tweeted it. Someone pointed out, like, it is interesting to find out you can deplatform Trump and there are no consequences for that whatsoever. Like,
Mhm.
nothing bad has happened in the short term, like for banning him on Twitter. Like, that was a good thing, hands down. That was the right decision. Now imagine had they done that in 2015.
I would argue that we wouldn't be here, but I don't know. Oh my God. You know what I just realized? Oh no. I just realized the pinned tweet on my Twitter page has been Donald Trump, you're such an asshole for like 5 years. I
Yeah,
guess I need to change that
evergreen.
now, huh?
Do you though? It still
Well, it was
applies.
from 2012. I do think maybe I'll leave it up until its 10-year anniversary because it's really important for me, for other people to know that I thought Trump was an asshole back in 2012.
Ahead of the curve. Ahead of the curve.
Uh-huh.
You are the
Um,
opposite of the Catholic priest who just figured it
yeah,
out yesterday.
exactly. No, I don't know, man. It's just very, it feels very disingenuous to have this, forgive the term, come to Jesus moment only when he's not in power anymore. It's genuinely embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for him,
Like
especially when he
Republicans
said, "Oh,
saying we care about the debt. What?
oh
We
yeah,
care about it for 4 years, but
yeah,
now
we care about families so much. That's
right.
why we provide nothing to them."
Yeah.
And especially the fact that he floated the German Catholic Church and Hitler.
Yeah.
Buddy, what the fuck did you do actually? Like, seriously, you're saying, oh, the German Catholic Church was part of the reason that Hitler got to power? Bud, that's you this time around. You
Well,
are the
no,
German Catholic.
he's acknowledging that. He's saying they didn't do enough back then. I didn't do enough during Trump. So I guess the question is,
No,
how much credit should he get now, if any? You don't want to give him any credit now.
I might be just whipping myself up into a frenzy, but the fact that he has an understanding of history that is inclusive enough to see what happens when a powerful religious entity and moral entity stands by as somebody picks on the least among us, whether that's Jewish people, whether that's immigrants, whether that's people of color. He has an understanding of history. And the fact that he just figured it out, no, miss me with that bullshit. Absolutely not. Fuck this guy.
Excellent. I got another one for you. Tell me what
Okay.
similar thing. Someone's fixing a mistake from the past. Let's see what you think about this one. So here's the backstory here. In 2019, when we could still go out and there were Halloween
I
parties and
remember
things
that.
like that, there was a woman named Autumn who said on social media somewhere, I'm dressing up as something really frightening, an anti-vaxxer. And basically her joking costume was
Oh,
she
the
was
measles woman?
no,
Oh,
different.
yes, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I was
This woman was holding up a tiny skeleton and she captioned her picture Karen and her non-vaccinated child.
Yeah, I remember this
Yeah,
one. I
that was
was
funny.
thinking of another person who said,
Oh,
I'm going to dress up as the least scary person, and she dressed up as someone's measles.
one
LOL.
step ahead of me. There you
Oh,
go.
yeah?
So,
Good for
yes,
you.
there was a woman named Heather Simpson who did what you just said. She said in response to that woman, well, I'm dressing up as the least scary thing for Halloween. So she basically put red dots all over her body with marker and said, like, I became the measles because she's an
Oh, funny.
anti-vaxxer and that's not scary.
And
And that
definitely
goes,
nobody's died of the measles ever, so that's pretty
uh-huh.
funny,
Um,
too.
207,000 people have died of measles since 2019. I had to look that one up, but there you go. So anyway, that one went viral for Heather. And here's what was interesting. This week, that woman who did the measles meme and made that picture and said, haha, I'm measles. I'm not scary at all. She posted something on Facebook that week, and I'm going to read you some of it. Hi, I'm Heather Simpson, and this is the story of how I went from being a hardcore anti-vaxxer to a pro-vaxxer.
No.
She is urging everybody to get their COVID shots. And if you go through, it's a very long post, but basically I'll try to summarize it. She said, when I was a kid, I was vaccinated. My parents were awesome about it. I watched an anti-vaxxer documentary a few years ago. I believed it. I really did think vaccines could cause, I'm quoting here, could cause autism, SIDS, autoimmune diseases, and death in general. And when her kid was 18 months old, this is in 2019 when she did that measles picture, she did slow play like the vaccine thing. And she never said like, don't get vaccines. She did the Jenny McCarthy thing where she's like, I'm asking questions. And I think we don't have to go on a quick schedule of vaccines and all that. And here's what she wrote in the post. When she started saying this stuff publicly, like she not only went viral, but like she genuinely acquired friends. And so, for example, like friend requests poured in, my audience grew, people started sharing my post. She basically felt important and smart. And that is not that I get that. That's a powerful feeling. Now, yeah.
All I want is for people to think and tell me I'm smart. It's literally why I do anything I do. I need people to tell me I'm smart and funny so badly. It's pathological.
So, yes. And so she did all this. She got the love she craved. And then the question is, what changed? Well, she had surgery for a personal issue. And she just realized these doctors are not part of a conspiracy. They want what's best for me. And when she started softening her views on the anti-vax thing, she basically got backlash from these new friends of hers. Like, how dare you question it in a way that doesn't suit my goal? And she says she was never anti-science. She was genuinely scared. She wanted to protect her child. She thought vaccines would hurt her child. And when she started studying all the quote unquote vaccine deaths, they were either exaggerated versions of what actually happened or anomalies, because like vaccines are like 99.9 effective sometimes, but she was only hearing the stories about that 0.1%. And she started realizing, oh no, I've been lied to. So she goes on for a while, and she says finally some people started reaching out to her who were actually genuinely nice and trying to help her understand her mistakes and not saying you're an idiot for being an anti-vaxxer. So at the end of this long post, she says, I want to apologize for anybody I hurt during my anti-vax days. She goes on to say she's going to be getting her flu shot. She'll get the COVID vaccine when she's eligible for it. Her kid's going on the pediatrician's recommended schedule. And then, so I reached out to her when I saw that post. We actually spoke on the phone earlier this week. Yeah. Basically, I wanted to know a few other things that she didn't talk about, which part of it is, did your religion, did your church have anything to do with this? And she said she's been going through a shift there as well. She's hardly an atheist, but she said she used to attend this conservative, Trump-supporting Baptist church before the pandemic happened, and the church rightly shut down when the pandemic occurred and went online, but she hasn't gone back. And she said, you know, she's a little more liberal when it comes to the feminism stuff. She supports, the church the church said, we're going to reopen. We're going to have in-person services, but you got to wear a mask. And she's like, well, still, you're doing an in-person gathering. You shouldn't listen to the scientists. Why are you having in-person gatherings at all, even with masks? Right. So she realizes she is following the scientists on a lot of other issues too. And so she's becoming less conservative religious, which anyone who's gone through that same road before knows that, like, who are atheists now, like, that's the road I traveled. I went from a very conservative church to a progressive-ish church and then eventually left altogether.
Yeah.
And then she just added, like, look, it's so important that we end the pandemic. She said, I asked her, look, what message would you send to any of these people who are in that position you were in a year ago? And she basically, and what would you say to people like me who have, I feel, been on the right side of this issue the whole time? She basically said, look, understand that a lot of these anti-vaxxers, the ones she has gotten to know very well over the course of the past year, they are not really saying they want to embrace conspiracy theories. They're not anti-science per se. They just want what's best for their kids, and they really genuinely think vaccines hurt their kids. So if you are in communication with them and you want to give them any sort of benefit of the doubt in order to sway their minds, if you go in with the understanding that they sincerely want what's best for their children and try to approach them from that angle, like, I know you do, and I want what's best for my kids and your kids too, and here's why you're wrong about what's best for your kids. Like, here's why the science actually says this is what's best for your kids. You may have a better shot at changing their minds. So I read that, and part of me thought, like, my gut reaction is, how much damage did you cause over the course of the year? I don't really want to praise you when you've done so much damage, because you were kind of the poster child for this anti-vax thing. But also, you did exactly the thing I would hope you would do, which is you did change your mind, and you are going public about how you changed your mind in the hopes people will follow you. And I do want to give you credit, because that's a hard thing to do, much less doing it publicly like she did. I want to ask you, if you would forgive's not the right word. If you would accept this change of heart and you want to give her some credit for changing her mind publicly, what is the difference between her and the Catholic priest who you don't seem to feel a lot of love for?
Well, so I think the problem kind of stems with conspiracy theories in general are a kind of reductive way for people who kind of feel powerless and uninformed to feel smarter than the people around them, like they have a secret that nobody else does. And that's really seductive. Like, as I said, I'm pathologically inclined to need people to tell me how smart I am. Like, I understand that urge to, like, feel like you know a little bit more. It's not a good urge. It's not something I'm proud of. Oh God, I don't know. But you're right. She is taking the journey that we would hope anybody that is anti-vax, homophobic, anti-trans, all of that stuff. She's taken the path, and I'm liable to. Here's the thing. I believe she actually took a journey in the last year, and I believe she actually sought to learn. And when she reached her conclusion, was open with it, which is brave. Changing your mind is unbelievably hard. I think anybody who has left religion or has left any sort of like abusive relationship, like, it is very hard to break out of something that you feel like is important and fundamental to who you are as a person.
I have, because I've been blogging forever, I've seen and heard so many stories of atheists who have come out of the closet and how hard that was and how brave that was. And we've talked about that. That's been written about in books and everything for such a long time. I have now seen, because I've been doing it long enough, I have seen some atheists who have since become religious.
Oh, really?
Atheists who are vocal about it, if not like Dawkins-esque, like known for being atheists, but they were active.
Did I do this? It sounds like
it may have been you. No, yeah, they have found God since, and trying to come out publicly that way, or posting something on Facebook saying, "I just wanted you to know, since we are friends, that I am now religious," and I have found, like, they get a lot of backlash too. Like, it's hard to change your mind publicly when, like you said, when your identity is consumed by this one thing.
Yeah. Well,
I imagine if I became religious, it would be ridiculously hard for me to say that out loud.
And extraordinarily lonely.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure I would find new friends who are eager to capitalize on that, but like, I would lose a lot of them too.
Well, this would become the Jessica Blumke Atheist Show. That's for goddamn sure.
Yes,
Thank you. We're doing really well in the charts. I think the difference is, and this is obviously third hand, right? Like, you're explaining to me both of these people's positions. I think the reason it's different is, to me, the timing of the Catholic priest is pretty fucking suspect. Because it seems to me that he knew that he was on the wrong side of history for if not the last 4 years, certainly up until recently, and understands the parallel that he can draw between Trump and Hitler, which I know is such a, what's that rule? Something of the internet.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
One's the sex one, one's a Nazi one.
Is that Godwin's Law?
Godwin's Law is exactly what it is. Yeah, I think. I don't know. You look it up.
Where any conversation like gets a comparison to Hitler.
Right. Whoever brings up Hitler first loses the debate.
Yeah.
But really hard not to see those parallels right now, especially in hindsight, when we saw what we saw over the last 4 years and saw people being more than happy to look away while shit was going down because they were getting what their judges or whatever that they wanted. It seems to me that this woman got, I mean, if you are somebody like me and watch a lot of documentaries about cults, anybody can get swept up in a cult. Anybody can, like, you are not too smart to get taken. And I think that's important. I think that's important for us, you and I, Hemant, as communicators or whatever it is that we do, to remember that, like, people who are religious, people who get swept in cults or whatever, are not necessarily dumb.
Mm-hmm.
They are off. It could, like, it's a very, like, there but for the grace of God go I. Like, I've seen documentaries about Jonestown and, like, the People's Temple back in like the 70s. Yeah, it seemed fucking dope. Like, I can see how people got swept up in that thing. And if you can't, like, I think you're being intellectually dishonest with yourself. Like, we've all made bad decisions. We've all had trouble, troubling opinions, whatever. But it seems to me that this woman learned more. And instead of that making her more deeply rooted in what she believed, because that's often a thing of, like, you can't, like we've said a lot, you can't reason somebody out of an opinion they didn't reason themselves into. So yeah, like, I think she needs to, and sounds like she kind of has started to atone for damage that she's caused. But the most responsible thing she can do right now is be the former anti-vaxxer
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be that spokesperson for, like, hey, like, uh, I came out of it. I learned my lesson. People aren't too far gone.
And
The,
I'm not necessarily a fan of like the Lincoln Project, the ones who are like, we're former Republicans who are now anti-Trumpers and we'll do
right,
anything to get Trumpism out of our
right,
party. It's like, well, where were you when you were working for George W. Bush? Like,
right.
please spare me. Like, you suddenly care
Yeah,
about. But if they, the one thing they did that I certainly appreciate is that they're like, listen, we know how to make ads. We know how to get people scared and to
right.
get you talking about shit because that's what we were really good at for
We're
years.
using our powers for good now.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't necessarily know that they were effective in changing voters' minds, but as they have said repeatedly, like, we're not making our commercials necessarily to change your mind.
Right.
It's to just get in Trump's head and
Yeah.
to make sure this is where the conversation goes. And it's like, look, if you know that mindset and you know how they think and you know how they act and you know what their buttons are,
Right.
and you know how to get through to them in ways that everyone else is not doing a good job at, you may be able to serve a good purpose by trying to like, there's nothing. Dawkins is not as persuasive a speaker to convince you to leave religion as someone who grew up in a church and knows that church and knows the culture and knows exactly what you are going through and left it and can help you walk out. Like, that
I mean,
person's always going to be more powerful to
yeah,
communicate.
I think that is, like, my personal weak spot in, like, this show is that, or our weak spot is, like, neither of us grew up mainstream Christians in any way. Like, your family was Jane, my family was, like, kind of culturally Catholic, but not churchgoers. So, like, that definitely is a blind spot in our ability to kind of, empathize with somebody who is leaving a religion that was a big part of their lives. The other thing about the anti-vax woman is it kind it just sucks that now she had access to all of the information, and it took however many people reaching out to her personally in
Personal experience.
interpersonal experience. And I guarantee you that it wasn't just one person. Like, probably dozens of people reached out, and one person was too mean, or one person was snide, and one person swore too much. And finally, one person, like, found her wavelength that they could communicate with her on. Like, is that now even though the internet exists for everybody, is it yours and my, is it leftist Facebook's responsibility to go to, like, anti-vaxxer Facebook pages and be like, hey, if anybody like, is that now my responsibility every time? I don't know. I
Yeah.
good for her. She did the
She
right
said very
thing.
clearly one of the things she realized when she was an anti-vaxxer is it was so easy to find online stuff that confirmed her beliefs,
Oh,
as wrong
totally.
as
The
they were,
internet is
which
a
obviously.
garbage pit,
Right,
but there's, like, cdc.gov or whatever. I don't
right,
know.
right, right.
Yeah, I think I would continue to hold both of those people, the priest and the former anti-vaxxer, at an arm's length. I would be wary to kind of invite them too close into my emotional club, as I'll put it. But yeah, I mean, good, I guess, good.
In just a couple of minutes, can you talk really quickly about what just happened in Arizona?
Yeah. So did this just happen? Oh, yesterday is
Yeah.
when I got this. So there's an Arizona lawmaker. His name is Walt Blackman. He it
From
says
a city called Snowflake,
I
of
was
all
Kevin.
places.
I
I
thought
saw
this
your
was a
look on your
goof.
face.
Did you?
Yeah, and I'm like, I know.
I usually read these before I get into it, but Jesus. Anyway, Walt Blackman, because this says Representative Walt Blackman R dash Snowflake, and it's like,
It could have been a description, it could have been
yeah,
a
it
city.
was
No.
very confusing. So he's always been known to have a hardline stance on abortion, and now he's introduced legislation requiring prosecutors to charge women who have an abortion and the doctors that help them do it.
And charge them with homicide. And it turns out in Arizona, homicide is punishable with the death penalty.
He ironically calls abortion clinics death factories, lol,
Mm-hmm.
and said that women who terminate pregnancies need to, quote, spend some time in our Arizona penal system.
Right.
So this is HB 2650.
He had
Um,
9 Republican co-sponsors, including that, like, the House Majority Leader, who is Republican, and like the Vice House Majority Leader, Deputy, whatever it's called. Like, powerful Republicans are backing this. And here's the thing: it Arizona is a state where it's Republican control of everything,
uh,
but it's a very slim. Like, they tried to flip it back this time, they couldn't do it. But it's like a 1 seat advantage for Republicans in the state Senate. Like, I don't know that this bill will pass. It is very extreme. I don't think every Republican is going to get on board with it, which means it's not going to get anywhere.
yeah.
But then the alternative is they're filing this bill because they hope it'll pass so that someone sues them over it so they can get it in front of Amy Coney Barrett. But it may be extreme even for them. There are no exceptions in this bill for anybody. Life of the mother doesn't matter. Rape, incest doesn't matter. They just want to kill women and doctors. Like, that brings them joy.
Right. Yes. And also, I mean, it's worth noting that it's not like this would be the one obstacle in the way of women who need to obtain abortions. They already have
Oh
a
my God.
24-hour waiting period. They require women to undergo ultrasounds at least 24 hours before the procedure. They banned pill-induced abortions after seven weeks of pregnancy. I found out I was pregnant and they're like, "You're 6 weeks along." And I was like, "Who?" Like, what the
Mhm.
fuck are you talking about? I oh my God, it's just so fucking infuriating. They want to require doctors to take additional measures to, quote, maintain the life of any fetus delivered alive during abortion. That's not a thing. Even if the fetus has no chance of survival, can't be just it's
That's what they're
frustrating, it's
focusing on in
infuriating.
one of the worst states of the pandemic because the Republicans haven't done anything to mitigate that stuff.
Well, and
Um,
it's interesting because I feel like recently, in the year 2020, a lot of shit happened. And one of the big things I think is we as a culture are starting, or maybe I'm just saying what I've been learning over the last 4 years of like how horribly destructive our penal system is in the United States anyway. And most of us on the left are like, hey, most people who are in jail probably don't need to be there. Like, if you are in jail for like selling weed, I am not concerned about you living in my neighborhood. But this guy is like the exact opposite. He said, oh God, where did it go? He said that if you want to say, what did he say? I can't find it. Anyway, he said something about like, if you want to say my body, my choice, then you need to spend some time in our penile system. Like, sir, this is nothing. This is bullshit. People are literally dying. Like, oh yeah, if you want to spell my body, my choice, you need to spend some time in our Arizona penile system. If you're going to kill and end the life of another human being, that is murder. Sir, respectfully, suck my dick. Like, get the fuck out of my uterus. I hate you. Get out of there.
is this your application to be president of AAI?
Oh shit. Okay, okay, bleep that out. Can you
Oh
replace
no, I
it?
was
And
gonna say they'll hire you on the spot. Apparently,
I was gonna say, can you replace that with like, sir, we have differing opinions, but I do believe we can come to a compromise. But no, fuck that guy.
they wouldn't hire you for that. Yeah.
God.
Anyway,
Okay. I know you have to get out of here in 5 minutes. I just wanted
all
to
good.
say quickly, Hank Aaron died today, who he was 86. And the reason I bring it up, he's a baseball player. He is considered one of the greats of all time. Um, he, for a long time, held the home run record. That was excuse me, it was a lifetime or a career home run record, not like single season. I remember when Barry Bonds broke that record, and it was weird because Barry Bonds' head was like gigantic for some reason when it hadn't already been big. I don't think that was anything though. But the reason I wanted to bring him up is that I think it's just important to contextualize how far we've come relatively quickly, because this man who died today, he started in the Negro Leagues. Like he was like it's just and he worked for like it worked. He played for like the Indianapolis Clowns or something really. Yeah, the Indianapolis 1952 season was his first with the Negro Leagues Indianapolis Clowns, which LOL, what the fuck. But when we talk about like people genuinely think we're in a post-racial country, and the fact that somebody just died who had a career in professional baseball and started in the Negro Leagues is, I think, should give us all
Yeah.
pause and realize that like
I
that's my dad's lifetime, his
yeah.
career. When
Someone
my dad
said
was a kid, there were still Negro Leagues, and I'm in my 30s. Like this isn't centuries ago.
if you
This
take
is
the lifespan of someone who was like George Washington becomes president and a child is born during his presidency, like we're only 4 generations in that sense removed
mhm.
from George Washington. Like it's such a short time span that our nation has been alive. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I saw someone say, like, yeah, how many generations, birth to death, like, have been around for our country? And you might think 8, 10, 12, whatever. No, it's 4.
Not even
Like, that's how
close.
many lifetimes have passed.
Well, I'm a friend of mine is really into like family history research. What's that
Yeah.
called? Like your
Genealogy.
genealogy. Thank you. And so I was like, oh, I'm kind of curious. I really don't know where a lot of my family is from. And yeah, like I have a great grandfather, I think, who was born in no. My great great grandfather was born in Kilkee in Ireland in County Clare. And like I feel like my family has been here forever, but the person who was born in Kilkee was born in like 1890 or something like
Yeah.
that. Like that's not that long ago, you guys. It's just really really wild. And also now you really want to go to Kilkee. It looks very pretty.
Where do we find
Um
you?
wait, hold on, really quick. I want to bookend the Hank Aaron
Oh, yeah.
story with do you know who Kurt Schilling is?
A picture.
He's a
He's
pitcher.
racist, isn't he? Right?
Super racist. So Kurt Schilling was like an all-time great pitcher. Famously, oh God, was it
Red Sox.
the
Bloody. Wasn't he
yeah,
the
he had the
bloody
bloody
foot guy?
sock when he
Yeah.
had some kind of injury and he was pitching on the mound and there was literally blood coming out of his sock and everyone's like, this guy's badass, and he was badass. Turns out he's also so racist that that they just did some voting in the Baseball Hall of Fame to decide who's going to get in this year, and Kurt Schilling should be a fucking slam dunk. Like he is an all-time great pitcher. People, and then he voiced his opinion in support of the Capitol riots, and a bunch of people who are voters for Baseball Hall of Fame were like, hey, baseball, can I rescind my vote? I changed my mind. I didn't
Nice.
realize this guy was a monster. And this is baseball. They're pretty tolerant of monsters. Like,
Yeah, right.
so that says a lot. Anyway, so I just wanted to frame that. And
Creationist,
also,
too, if I remember correctly.
he was what?
Creationist as well.
Oh, is he? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so that happened. You can find me on my Twitter handle. I recently changed. If you haven't been listening, it's now my name, Jess Blumke, JessBluemke. I've gotten like 80 followers since I changed it, so I think people were just confused. Um, So you can find me there at Twitter. I'm doing custom orders for cross stitches at Bitches Get Stitched Done. And you can tune into my other podcast with my husband called Cooper Duper Podcast. We're rewatching Twin Peaks. And that's what we're doing. It should be good. Hemant, where can we find you?
I'm at Hemant Mehta on Twitter, where you can apparently call me a cunt all you want. And I'm at friendlyatheist.com. We'll be back next week. I'm going to run now.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.